If you ever hear Bill Gates talk, he essentially went when he was trying to start Microsoft. Do you realize he asked over 1,200 people for funding and backing? And 1,200 people said no. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome, 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 welcome to one of my favorite times of the week, and I hope it's one of your favorite times of the week. That's when we get to spend some time together virtually on Life of a CISO with yours truly, Dr. Eric Cole. And I'm just in a super pumped mood this morning. I'm getting started and getting ready, and I don't know why, but I'm singing, here we go, one more time, everybody's still in line, here we go now, right? Now you know why I went into cybersecurity and not dancing or singing or any other amazing skills out there. So you got a little of my, I'm not even sure which one of those bands are. Is that, you can post below, is that NSYNC or Backstreet Boys or one of those? I don't even know which group it is anymore, right? It's one of those, but I'll have to tell you, it's sort of fun, right? To listen to some music, enjoy, and we're gonna have some fun today. If you haven't noticed, I'm already having fun, so come join me. So as always, Life of a CISO is focused on one objective and one goal, and that's simple. That's you. That's you, and to make you the world-class CISO. Now, here's the coolest part. The coolest part is I don't really have to do anything because you're already a world-class CISO. You already have that in you. It's not like I'm going to sit there and by you listening to what I'm saying, I'm going to zap into you, right, some magical things that all of a sudden is going to make you a world-class CISO. You already have that in you. I just have to get you to remove those parts. When I'm always reminded when I do podcasts or keynotes or coach my clients is the story, and I'll always paraphrase, always research and look it up to get the exact details. But I know when, I believe it was Michelangelo, when he was sculpting David, and they said, how did you do that, right? How did you take this block of marble and be able to create David? And he goes, no, you got it wrong. David was always in the marble. I just removed the extra pieces. So he didn't create anything, right? He just went in and said, if I take this away and this away and this away, and most of us, that's really what's there. You might need to add a couple of things, but for the most part, it's just removing those limiting beliefs, removing those thoughts, those things that hold you back, because deep down inside, every single one of you is already a world-class CISO. It just might not have happened yet. So that's the coolest part. As you know, I always like starting a little motivation to get everyone going, a little mindset. And the reason I do that is because I've been running the Life of a CISO course and coaching clients. It's going on over a year now. And everybody comes to the course and everybody comes to me for coaching. And I always ask, how can I help you? And what they always say they want is, how do I act and behave like a CISO? How do I speak business? How do I show up in meetings? How do I go in and essentially transform from a security engineer to a world-class strategic thinker that's focused on the business of allowing cybersecurity to be a business enabler? That's what everyone says they want, and I provide that. But what I found early on was something interesting. I was providing that to people, and they still weren't making the progress they should. And they still weren't getting the jobs that they should. And they still weren't advancing or making the progress that they should. And what I started noticing when I talked with folks is I would hear things and patterns in what they're saying, like, well, I applied for one job and they said no, so I guess I'm not CISO material. or I guess nobody's going to really want to hire me, or I guess I really can't get a job, or I put my resume out for 5 different offerings and I didn't get a single callback for one of those. I guess no one's going to hire me as a CISO. And that is what they really needed. So what I always tell folks, if you hear me give keynotes or presentations, or I have the privilege to coach you, is I always say, I'm going to give you what you want, because if I don't, you're going to be upset. But I'm going to secretly, and maybe not so covertly, maybe even overtly, I'm going to give you what you need. I'm going to give you those pieces that you need to be successful. Because when we can go in and recognize that, okay, if you applied to 5 jobs and you didn't get a single callback, it's basically your resume is stinky poo-poo. It has nothing to do with you, right? So we have to fix that. Then you start applying to more jobs and you get some callbacks, but you don't get the offer. Great. All that means is we have to work on your interviewing skills. And then if that doesn't work, then we have to work on your mindset. But it's just systematically breaking it down. And that's really what I want to share with you today is I'm obsessed with being world-class CISO, with being world-class security professionals. That's what I'm obsessed with. That's why I believe I'm on this planet to help create world-class chief information security officers, because my ultimate purpose, if you follow me, is to make cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. And I honestly know I can't do it alone. So it's not about me going out there and changing the world. It's me finding brilliant people like you that are also world-class so we can together change the world. That's sort of my secret mission, or not so secret mission there. So to me, it's all about how do we create world-class security professionals. And one thing I study a lot is, what is the key to success? Why is it that some people are successful and some people are not? Why is it that it seems, because I'll tell you right now, behind the scenes, it's never easy, right? Success is not easy, right? Anyone who you think got success easy is either lying or you haven't looked deep enough. But the point is, there are some people that seem to be able to accomplish it and other people can't. Is as if they know the secret formula. And I've been studying this for over 10 years. And I'll give you my answer today. It might change in 6 or 9 months, but I'll give you my answer today. I'm not going to give it now because you have to listen, right? But if you look at and read these books, do you realize this area of how to be successful is a $1 billion industry? There are people that make tons of money doing seminars, right, on mindset and success and how to basically accomplish whatever you want, right? Living your destiny, right? Who would that be, right? Date with Destiny. Tony's a good guy, Tony Robbins. So not knocking him at all, but there's tons of great people out there. Brendan Burchard, David Bayer. I mean, lots of great people. I've become friends with many of them. They're awesome, amazing folks. I always enjoy spending time with them. And there's books and there's tapes and there's all that stuff out there. So what does it really boil down to? And you start looking, and one avenue, of course, you have the secret, right? Which is basically manifestation and mindset, what you think about, you focus. That's true. That is absolutely true. I'll tell you right now, if you are sitting there and you think about bombing the interview, and you just know, and you picture it. So it's so real, getting that call from HR in which they tell you you didn't get the job. If that's how you act and behave, I'll tell you right now, you're not going to get the job, right? Because you are focused on the wrong thing. So yes, being focused on what you want and not what you don't want, right, and become obsessed, but that's very important. I wouldn't say that is the ultimate key. And of course, working hard, right? You got to work hard. You got to put in a lot of energy and effort. That's also Very, very important. And I'm not going to name every one of them because this would be a 40-hour video just in and of itself. But if you asked me 6 months ago, the two things I would have said was most people are afraid to ask. Most people don't apply for that job because they don't think they're going to get it, so they apply for this job, right? They don't ask for what they really want. And if you don't ask for what you really want, you're never going to get it. And then the other thing I would have told you 6 months ago is persistence. Most people give up on the 1 yard line. Most people, they're like playing, I'll just use football because there's the draft going on. They're playing football in the fog and they don't know where the goal is. And they just know they're on the field. And they're getting ready to snap the ball again. And they're just like, I'm done. I just can't do this. This is way too hard. And if the fog lifted, they'd realize they were on the 1 yard line and there's no defensive folks in front of them. All they needed to do was take 2 steps and they would have scored. All that energy and effort over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, all they had to do was take 2 more steps and they give up way too quick. And all of those are true. But recently, what I've really coming up with is, to me, the difference between success and failure is this. Is the word no an enabler or a disabler? When you hear no, do you stop, or does it get you excited and drive you forward? And what I mean by that is most folks, when they want something, when they want a job, they want to close a deal, they want to date somebody, they want to meet somebody, whatever it is, very often the initial time they're going to get a no. And they might even get a no a second or a third or a fourth time. But the difference between average folks and world class is world class keeps asking until they get a yes. It might be 100, it might be 1,000. Some of our big clients, some of our very, very big clients, and people look at me going, oh, Eric, with Secure Anchor, you're so lucky, and this and this and this. I'm like, no, one of my biggest clients told me no. I actually went back and counted because it was in emails and phone calls 79 times over a 6-month period. But I knew they needed help. I knew that we had a unique differentiator, and I knew that I just wasn't giving the message correctly, and I knew there was going to be the right opportunity. And now we've been partners for over 8 years, and they say that's one of the best decisions they ever did was hiring us. But what if after 5, 10, or 15 times I said, too much, right? This is just too much work, and you quit? What I always tell my salespeople and what I always tell my kids, unless somebody files a restraining order on you, you keep asking, right? And I sort of am joking, but I'm also very, very serious, right? I had somebody that was applying for a job, and they said the interview went great, and the interview was awesome, but it's been a couple days since they heard back. And I said, well, reach out. And they're like, but I've reached out twice already. And I'm like, and did they reply back? And he said, no. I said, then keep asking. Oh, well, I don't want to be annoying. How is that annoying? You are a unique skill. They have a unique problem. They need you to fill that job. If you honestly and earnestly believe you are the best person for that position, but you are afraid to continuously follow up, you're doing them a disservice. Unless they tell you to stop, or unless you're being obnoxious, right? Keep on asking. And he said, I felt very uncomfortable, but I trusted you, Eric, and he kept doing it. And he got the job. And then he called me shortly after. He goes, Eric, I just went with the COO to lunch, And he basically told me that I was their second choice and they weren't going to hire me. But one of the key components of the position was communication and persistence. And the first candidate didn't reach out to them at all during that week they were trying to decide. And he reached out to them 12 times, and he kept giving them new information, new data, what he's going to do, first 30 days, and it kept giving them valuable information. And he goes, based on that, they actually switched. The number one became the number two, and the number two became the number one. What if he didn't do that? What if he just sat like everyone else because he was afraid of the no? He viewed no as a disabler, and he didn't ask. If you want something bad enough, no is just jet fuel. And here's why. This sounds bizarre, and some people think I'm a little weird, and you probably know I'm a little crazy, especially I started off this podcast, me singing and dancing to, I don't even know which group it was, but hopefully in the chat, you'll let me know which 80s band it was. But the point is, this might sound weird or crazy. I ultimately want a yes. So don't get me wrong. But if I get a no, that's just as exciting. Because I know that I'm not going to get no's forever. I seriously know that one different no's, right? No's. I seriously believe, I'll use a different word there so we don't get confused. I seriously believe that every no is one step closer. What if you believe that there had to be 200 no's before you closed the deal? And that was your true belief. Wouldn't you approach it completely different? Now, when you're reaching out the fifth and sixth and seventh time, you're still aggressive, you're still pushing it, but you're like, you know something? I know there's 196 more of these or 195 more of these, and that's your mindset, going every time I ask again and get a no, I'm checking a box. And eventually, if I check enough of these boxes, I'll get the yes. I know it seems strange, but that, to me, is the real key to success. Now, I always have the right to change my mind. And in 6 months or 6 weeks or 6 hours, I might post a new video. But right now, that is my answer is don't be afraid of no. Don't be afraid of asking. The difference between somebody who sits on the sideline and somebody who is now the owner of Twitter, right, is because he kept asking. When Elon Musk said he wanted to buy Twitter, they didn't say yes right away. Do you think that Elon just woke up, depending on when you're listening to this, a couple of weeks or a couple of months ago, and said, I want to buy Twitter? He reached out to the Twitter people and said, I want to buy you. And they said, okay. And then he bought Twitter. That's what most people think. That's the irony of what most people think of successful folks. But what if this was something he was working on for 6, 9, 12 months? What if every time he initially reached out, they laughed at him and they told him, you're crazy. And they told him there is no way on planet Earth we would ever let that happen. But he didn't care. Right? He kept going. Now I will find out how many no's because I'm persistent. So at some point, I will find out from Elon how many times he had to ask to buy Twitter before they finally said yes. My guess is it's a couple hundred. It might even be a couple thousand. Right? One of my favorite quotes is, we all look at Bill Gates. Right? And many people think of Bill Gates as college kid in Harvard, had an idea for an operating system, went to IBM, said, I want to build DOS. IBM said yes. He built DOS. He built Microsoft, and he became a billionaire. That is about as far from the truth. If you ever hear Bill Gates talk, he essentially went when he was trying to start Microsoft. Do you realize he asked over 1,200 people for funding and backing. And 1,200 people said no. Most people, after 50 no's, you would have been like, you know something? I'm going to stay in college. I'm going to get a job. This Microsoft-y thing is probably just a pipe dream. It's not really going to happen. And how many people after 100 no's? Now, 100, think about this. He initially went to 100 of the brightest investors, venture capitalist firms that were out there. These are people that are brilliant at predicting the success of companies. These are people that know this inside and out. And they all told him, this is a bad idea. You should stay in school. This is a bad idea. We are not going to give you money. We are not going to fund you. And then after 300 and 500, you see where I'm going? How many people would have given up? And the difference was Bill had such a strong conviction that he knew this was the right thing to do, that those no's just excited him. Those no's just empower him because he knew he was getting one step closer to the finish line. What if you had that mindset? What if you wanted something so bad, whether it's to become a CISO at a Fortune 50 company, it's to get promoted at your company, whatever it is, and you had such a strong conviction that you weren't going to stop. A no was going to empower you and excite you as opposed to disable you. What if you had that mindset? Wouldn't everything change? So now I want to switch to sort of the second part, which is about the strategy piece. And what I want to talk about is I'm spending, now that we're hopefully coming out of the pandemic, right? I'm starting to travel more. I'm doing more keynotes. I'm getting more time on panels with CEOs and CIOs and other executives. And about a week ago, I got to spend some time on a plane with a couple of CEOs. And of course, when they know my background and what I've done and everything, it sort of always evolves into cybersecurity. And so we sort of started down this path where I asked them, I said, be honest with me. I said, let's just level set here. We're at 42,000 feet. No one's around. No one's recording us. I just want an honest answer. Is cybersecurity something that you're concerned about? Is it really something you are worried and concerned about? Or is it something that you just feel like you have to check a box? And there were 3 CEOs on the plane, and they all were like, how dare you? Like they were like, Eric, of course. This is our number one concern. This is our number one priority. And one CEO said it best. He goes, Eric, this is the only unknown that could basically bankrupt our businesses. We have all been doing this for long enough. We understand markets. We understand competition. We understand publicly traded. We understand all those things. We know how to manage and mitigate those risks. Those don't bother us. But cybersecurity, we don't have a lot of experience with. And the experience we do have, many CEOs have crashed and burned. Many CEOs have done a terrible job with it. So yes, we are terrified of cybersecurity because we don't know what we don't know. And literally that is the one thing that we could wake up in the morning and we could look at our numbers and we could have exceeded our quarterly objections. We could have earned all our bonuses. We could have increased growth. We could be crushing the competition. But if we have a major breach in which we lose customer confidence or all of our client data is compromised, none of that other stuff matters. Our stock price could drop. We could lose our customers. We could lose our market. Everything could change in an instant. So we are very, very concerned about cyber. So then I asked the next question. So if that's the case, how come you don't have a chief information security officer that's the top 5? And what I mean by that is most companies, if you look at the top 5 executives in an organization, it's usually going to be president and chairman are usually the same. CEO, usually that's different. It could be the same. COO, CFO, right? Chief legal counsel. I know that's not necessarily 5, but those are sort of core. In more and more companies, you are seeing CIO, Chief Information Officer, up there. But very, very rarely do you see the CISO there. So then I finally got to the crux, which is, as I said, why? If cyber is so critical and you are so worried, how come you don't have a CISO on the top 5 or 6? And how come you don't have a security person on the board? And their answer was quite simple. We can't find any cybersecurity business folks. They said it very clearly. All of the cybersecurity people that we have are more concerned about security than the business. And one exec CEO said it best. He goes, Eric, I cannot have somebody on the core group that's running the business or on our board of directors that believes there are situations where cybersecurity is more important than the business. We just can't have that. That's not how you run a business. And there are way too many cybersecurity folks that honestly believe it is okay to negatively hurt the revenue, negatively hurt profitability in order to make the organization secure. Now that might be okay for a security person, security engineer, but that is not going to be acceptable for a CISO. The golden rule of being a CISO is if you do anything that negatively hurts the business, you're wrong. If cybersecurity negatively hurts the business, the profitability, or the revenue, you are wrong in not doing your job. Now, it's interesting when I go down this route and I do keynotes on this topic, there are some people that get very angry at me. I had one person, I was giving a keynote a couple of weeks ago, stood up and go, Eric, that's dead wrong. And I said, sir, congratulations. You're a world-class security engineer. But if you believe I'm dead wrong, you will never, ever be a world-class CISO. And then and I'm like, I'm not going to argue with you, sir, because I have a short period of time. But I said, here's my data. I have over 35 CEOs that have told me that. How many CEOs have told you that you're right? Right? And then usually that stops people pretty quickly because it's not about me versus you. It's the CEOs. The bottom line, if you want to be a world-class CISO, is you need to remember that C, that chief. Chiefs are business folks. If your first letter in your title is a chief, your primary and utmost focus is the success of the business, the growth of the business, the growth of the revenue, and the profitabilities. And if you don't get that as a chief information security officer, and you honestly believe that it is okay to tell business units no to revenue growth or no to profitability in order to secure the organization, this might be hard for some of you, but you will never be world-class. You will never be world-class CISO. You might be a world-class security engineer. You might be other things, but that's the fundamental problem. And I don't know about you, but being on that airplane with those CEOs that like hit me like a ton of bricks going, they're so right. So many of us are still focusing on making the organization 100% secure. Our mindset is the most important thing is to secure the enterprise. It doesn't matter. That is the top priority. And like I said, for world-class security engineers, that might be a quality you want, but for world-class CISOs, it's deadly. So remember, if you want to be a world-class CISO, you must treat cybersecurity as a business enabler. How do we use cybersecurity to enable the business to grow, to enable the business to increase revenue, to enable the business to increase profitability, to enable the business to have a competitive advantage, to enable the business to increase our stock price? That is quite different than the way that many CISOs think today. And that's why we have such a struggle. And that's why we're seeing this disconnect where companies are giving somebody the title of Chief Information Security Officer, but they're not invited to the board meetings. They're not on the top 5 or 6. They're not a critical component of the business because the CEOs do not believe that their top priority is the business. So I'm just going to leave you with that. World-class CISOs are business people that use cyber security as a business enabler. And I'm going to say it one more time and let it sink in. Well, some of you might have to listen to this a few more times, right? But world-class CISOs do not make cybersecurity the top priority. World-class CISOs make the business the top priority and use cybersecurity as a business enabler.